Biden administration.
I'm sorry, the what?
The sincerity
The sincerity of the Biden administration.
of the Biden administration and accused the United States of containing China while pushing for diplomatic talks. How would you respond to that? And do you
Tổng
think
thống Biden
President
đã có
Xi
cuộc
is being sincere
cuộc viếng
about
thăm Việt
getting the
Nam vào ngày
relationship
hôm nay
back
ngày
on
10 tháng
track
9 và
as he
có cuộc
bans
phát biểu của báo
Apple
giới
in
tại
China?
Hà Nội.
Well, look, first of
Ông
all,
đề cao cái chuyến thăm này.
I am sincere about getting the relationship right. And one of the things that is going on now is China is beginning to change some of the rules of the game.
Phóng viên của báo VOA hỏi về việc Trung Quốc tạo sức ép tại Biển Đông, thì ông Biden nói là Trung Quốc tạo ra cái những quy luật trong cuộc chơi của Biển Đông, điều đó thì không chấp nhận được.
Those kinds of things. And so really what this trip was about, it was less about containing China. I don't want to contain China. I just want to make sure we have a relationship with China that is on the up and up, squared away. Everybody knows what it's all about. And one of the ways you do that is you make sure that we are talking about the same things. And I think that one of the things we've done, I've tried to do, and I've talked with a number of my staff about this for the last, I guess, 6 months, is we have an opportunity to strengthen alliances around the world to maintain stability. That's what this trip was all about. Having India cooperate much more with the United States, be closer with the United States, Vietnam being closer with the United States, it's not about containing China. It's about having a stable base in the Indo-Pacific. And for example, when I was spending a lot of time talking with President Xi, he asked why was I going to have the Quad, meaning Australia, India, Japan, the United States. And I said to maintain stability. It's not about isolating China. It's about making sure the rules of the road, everything from airspace and space in the ocean, is the international rules of the road are abided by. And so, and I hope that, I think that Prime Minister Xi has some difficulties right now. All countries end up with difficulties, and he has some economic difficulties he's working his way through. I want to see China succeed economically, but I want to see him succeed by the rules. The next question was to
Câu hỏi
Bloomberg.
tiếp theo là
Mr. President, following up on your comments on China and the economy, you recently called China's economy a ticking time bomb. Do you believe the country's slowdown could risk destabilizing the global economy or causing China to be more aggressive defensively?
Trung Quốc là một nền kinh tế bom nửa chậm, thì nếu mà kinh tế của Trung
Do you
Quốc ảnh
believe the
hưởng phát triển
country's
chậm thì có ảnh
slowdown
hưởng
in
đến
growth
sự phát
could
triển
risk
chậm của thế giới hay
destabilizing the
không?
global economy or cause China to be more aggressive defensively, including with Taiwan? And separately, sir, are you worried about the meeting between President Putin and Kim Jong-un, if that could mean Russia has more gains in the war in Ukraine?
Look, I think China has a difficult economic problem right now for a whole range of reasons that relate to international growth and lack thereof, and the policies that China has followed. And so I don't think it's going to cause China to invade Taiwan. As a matter of fact, the opposite, probably doesn't have the same capacity that it had before. But as I said, we're not looking to hurt China, sincerely. We're all better off if China does well. China does well by the international rules, grows the economy. But they have had some real difficulty in terms of their economy of late, particularly in real estate.
Và Trung Quốc đã tham gia thị trường thế giới
The actions
cũng rất là
that they're
đúng
going to
luật.
have to take are ones that they're in the process of deciding right now. And I'm not going to predict what way will come out, but we're not looking to decouple from China. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sell China material that would enhance their capacity to make more nuclear weapons, to engage in defense activities that are contrary to what is viewed as most people think is a positive development in the region. And but we're not trying to hurt China.
Chúng tôi cũng không có ý muốn là làm tổn hại cái nền kinh tế của Trung Quốc.
BBC, War.
Ok, câu hỏi tiếp theo do phóng viên từ báo BBC.
It is. My name is Laura Bicker. I'm from BBC News. Good evening, Mr. President. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Chào ngài tổng thống,
Good.
ông khỏe không?
These 5-day trips around the world are no problem.
I can imagine. It is evening. I'd like to remind you. I mean, in the last 6 months, you've signed pacts and deals with Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Australia, and even the Pacific Islands. You're here standing in Beijing's backyard. Now, China says this is part of your Cold War mentality. Are they right, sir? Are they right, Mr. President? Is there a danger of a Cold War? And when will you meet Mr. Xi?
Well, I hope I get to see Mr. Xi sooner than later.
Thì nó có làm
I've spent more time with him than any other world leader has, some total over the last 12 years. So I hope to get to see him again soon. But, no, look, for example, one of the things we did in India, we provided for a new path that's going to save everybody money, increase the global South's capacity to grow by sending. We're going to have a new railroad from India all the way across to the Mediterranean, shipping lanes and pipelines across the Mediterranean through Europe up into Great Britain and beyond. That's all about economic growth. It has nothing to do with hurting China or helping China. It has to do with dealing with everything from climate change to making sure that these countries can succeed economically and grow. Look, my thesis has been from the beginning, both domestically and in terms of foreign policy, invest in your people. Invest in the people. Give them a chance. Everything's better off when people, it's going to sound trite. If everybody in the world had a job they got up in the morning and wanted to go to and thought they could put 3 squares on the table for their family no matter where they live, the whole world would be better off. Would be a lot better. That's the notion here behind this. For example, you know, one of the things we're doing in terms of, I proposed a long time ago at the G7, now it's going to come to fruition at the G20, is making sure that we build a railroad all the way across the African continent. Think about it. There is no way to cross the African continent by road, by rail, and there's not even a direct highway across. Now let's assume, for the sake of discussion, we talk about food shortages. Assume there was one country in that vast continent that had an excess of foodstuffs and resources. How would they get it to where they're going to go? How are they going to do it? That's why we're also going to invest billions of dollars in solar facilities in Angola, to have the largest solar facility in the world, or among the largest. That helps Angola, but also helps the whole region. So I think we think too much in terms of Cold War terms. It's not about that. It's about generating economic growth and stability in all parts of the world. And that's what we're trying to do. Sorry. Okay. Am I pronouncing it Avilia? Did I pronounce the name correctly? There you are.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank
It's
you.
Aurelia and for AFP. I had a question on the climate crisis. You just mentioned the G20. Just this week, the United States warned that if there is no phasing out of fossil fuels, it won't be possible to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement. There was no agreement at the G20 on fossil fuels. How concerned are you about this lack of consensus?
It wasn't so much an agreement that we would try to meet the goals of the G20. The United States is going to meet those goals, by the way. We're going to exceed those goals. A lot of other countries are as well. But we want to give those countries that don't have the economic wherewithal and did not cause the problem in the first place. For example, I met with Lula in Brazil. I started off way back in the 80s with a really fine Republican senator named Dick Lugar. We said, here's what we're going to do. If you owe us money, we're going to forgive your debt if you maintain your forest, because they become carbon sinks. They're the things that take carbon out of the air. And so we're talking to what we should be and the countries that cleared their land and put cattle on it and farming and did all the things that increase development. They, in fact, are the main reason why we've gotten as far down the road to disaster here as we have. And so it seems that if we have the economic capacity, those nations, should be getting together and providing help for the nations that don't have the wherewithal to do it. The economic wherewithal and the infrastructure wherewithal. And that's why, for example, I mentioned, in the interest of time, I just mentioned Angola again. Angola has the capacity to generate megawatts of energy through solar energy. They don't have the economic means to do that. Isn't it in the interest of the whole world if they're in fact able to generate significant capacity to absorb, to prevent carbon from being released in the air? I think it is. So what we're trying to do is help those nations, particularly in the global south, where they're not as wealthy, where there are not as many opportunities, to be able to deal with the things that they want to deal with. For example, and I'll end with this, there is more carbon absorbed from the atmosphere on a daily basis, and I'll look to my friend John Kerry, who's forgotten more about this than most people know. Correct me if I get this wrong, John, but I'm quite sure I'm right. And that is that there's more carbon absorbed from the air into the Amazon region, into the ground, than admitted in the entire United States on the same basis. Now imagine if people go in and do what we did 250 years ago and cut down the forest and start farming in that area. No longer have that great carbon sink. It would be a gigantic problem. So we should be going to areas, whether it's in the Congo or other places, as the G7 nations and the wealthy G20 nations, though, and providing the kind of infrastructure they need to be able to benefit. And guess what? In addition to helping the environment overall, and the only existential threat humanity faces, even more frightening than a nuclear war, is global warming going above 1.5 degrees in the next 10 years. It'd be real trouble. There's no way back from that. And so there's a lot we can do in the meantime. For example, that pipeline, that railroad we're talking about going across from India throughout the Middle East and across the Mediterranean and all through Europe, that's going to have hydrogen pipeline there. This is going to significantly reduce the amount of carbon emitted in the air, but it costs a lot of money to put that down. And the world's going to say it's in our interest, collective interest, to do it. So I have not given up at all on the notion that we're going to be able to, how can I say it? I think we can triple the renewable capacity for, as it relates to global warming, by the year 2030. Countries following the IRA playbook, which is the one we passed, clean energy jobs are going to create manufacturing jobs. For example, as a consequence of what we've done, we have the strongest economy in the world today. Right now, today, the United States of America has the strongest economy in the world. Now, we've got more to do, but we have the strongest economy in the world. And one of the reasons we're doing it, we changed the mechanism how we deal with this. And that is, instead of trickle-down economy, that is, if the wealthy and the corporations do very well, everybody's going to do well. Well, the truth of the matter is, I've never bought that theory, but I think the times have changed, and a lot of leading economists are beginning to agree with me. Just flat, straight-out academic economists. And that is, we should build economic growth from the middle out, and the bottom up. When that happens, everybody does well. Everybody does well. The wealthy still do very, very well. They have no problem. You can still be a billionaire under that system as well. But you're going to start paying your taxes if I have anything to do with it. That's a different issue. But all kidding aside, I think the other thing is dawning on people. Many of you who are foreign policy experts have been engaged for a long time. Did you ever think you'd be sitting at a G20 conference where everyone was preoccupied with the notion of global warming?
Cái hội nghị
Not a joke.
G20
Did you ever
thì
think
chúng
that?
ta bàn về biến đổi khí hậu
And
rồi về phát triển kinh tế toàn cầu.
my brother loves having, there's famous lines from movies that he always quotes, and one of them is there's a movie about John Wayne, he's an Indian scout, and they're trying to get I think it was the Apache, one of the great tribes of America, back on the reservation, and he's standing with the Union, so they're all on their horses and their saddles, and there's 3 or 4 Indians in headdresses, and the Union soldiers. The Union soldiers basically saying to the Indians, "Come with me, we'll take care of you, everything will be good." And the Indian looks at John Wayne and points to the Union soldier and says, "He's a lion, dog-faced pony soldier." Well, there's a lot of lion, dog-faced pony soldiers out there about global warming, but not anymore. All of a sudden, they're all realizing it's a problem. And there's nothing like seeing the light. Let's see. I'm just following my orders here.
Để bảo vệ môi trường và toàn cầu.
Staff, was there anybody haven't spoken to? No, I ain't calling on you. I'm calling on, I said I had 5 questions. Anita from VOA.
Tổng thống Biden sẽ trả lời 5 câu hỏi của 5 phóng viên từ 5 tờ báo lớn
I
khác
hope you
nhau.
didn't think that calling only on women would get you softballs tonight.
Oh, I know better than that.
Okay, well, let me start with President Xi.
If you sent me a softball, I wouldn't know what to do with it. I'd probably strike out even worse.
Well, let me ask you about, you've spent lots of time talking about all the time you spent with President Xi and the importance of leader-to-leader communication, yet you two haven't spoken in 10 months. And I just wonder, are you worried that this is destabilizing the U.S.-China relationship, and what are you going to do about it? And then, if I may, on Ukraine,
đã qua 10 tháng rồi ông không nói chuyện với ông thủ
he
tướng
is upset that the G20 communique didn't name Russia as the aggressor. Have you managed to rally more support or sympathy across the G20, or is this emerging as a wedge issue with the global South? And does that change your commitment to Ukraine?
It's not a wedge issue with the global South. It's a wedge issue with Russia, which is present, and with China, which is present, has representation. And and by the way, I am my team, my staff still meets with President Xi's people and his cabinet. In effect, I met with his number 2 person here in India today. So it's not like there's a crisis if I don't personally speak to him. It'd be better if I did. But I think, look, this is not a criticism. It's an observation. He has his hands full right now. He has overwhelming unemployment with his youth. One of the major economic tenets of his plan isn't working at all right now. I'm not happy for that, but it's not working. So he's trying to figure out, I suspect, I don't know, just like I would, trying to figure out what to do about the particular crisis we're having now. But I don't think it's a crisis relating to conflict between China and the United States. As a matter of fact, I think it's less likely to cause that kind of conflict. Anyway, I just think that there are other things on leaders' minds, and they respond to what's needed at the time. And look, nobody likes having celebrated international meetings if you don't know what you want at the meeting. if you don't have a game plan. He may have a game plan. He just hasn't shared it with me. But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but
giữa
I'm
Hoa Kỳ
going
và
to go
Trung
to
Quốc có
bed.
những điều khác biệt, những cái mâu thuẫn mà chưa có giải quyết được, mà ông Tập cũng không có đưa cái bàn tay ra để giải quyết cho tôi.
We talked about at the conference overall. We talked about stability. We talked about making sure that the third world, the southern hemisphere had access to change it, had access. It wasn't confrontational at all. He came up to me and
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Các bạn
with every person I've met with. Thank you.
Chí Nguyễn chào bạn Chí Nguyễn nha. Hôm nay từ The White House, từ trang YouTube của Nhà Trắng các bạn. Tin chính thức từ Nhà Trắng. Ok, như vậy là Tổng thống Joe Biden đã kết thúc buổi nói chuyện và chia sẻ tại Hà Nội với các phóng viên trong và ngoài nước tại Việt Nam. Xin cảm ơn các bạn đã theo dõi buổi tường thuật trực tiếp của vietditru từ nguồn là The White House của Nhà Trắng. Ok, cảm ơn mọi người. Xin chào tạm biệt và hẹn gặp lại. Tổng thống Biden có một ngày làm việc tại Hà Nội, Việt Nam, và đây là Tổng thống Joe Biden sáng nay cũng có gặp và làm việc với Tổng Bí thư của Việt Nam là ông Nguyễn Phú Trọng, và ông đã phát biểu cùng với ông Nguyễn Phú Trọng vì lợi ích của nhân dân hai nước và mong muốn tăng cường hợp tác nhằm các mục tiêu hòa bình, hợp tác và phát triển bền vững trong bối cảnh mới. Và ông Nguyễn Phú Trọng nói là Việt Nam hoan nghênh hai nước xác nhận quan hệ ở tầm cao mới là đối tác chiến lược toàn diện nghe các bạn, toàn diện vì hòa bình, hợp tác và phát triển bền vững. Tổng Bí thư Việt Nam ông Nguyễn Phú Trọng nêu đường lối đối ngoại nhất quán của Việt Nam là độc lập, tự chủ, hòa bình, hữu nghị, hợp tác và phát triển, đa dạng hóa, đa phương hóa quan hệ đối ngoại, chủ động và tích cực hội nhập quốc tế toàn diện, sâu rộng, cũng như thực hiện đường lối quốc phòng 4.0. Do vậy mà trước khi cái cuộc gặp ông Biden qua Việt Nam thì ông Thủ tướng Quốc Phạm Minh Chính cũng bên Việt Nam cũng đi qua Trung Quốc để trấn an Trung Quốc là Việt Nam không đứng ở phía nào, Việt Nam đang là đa phương hóa, nâng cao mối quan hệ với Mỹ, nhưng cũng không muốn làm xấu cái mối quan hệ với Trung Quốc. Đó là điều tốt trong mối quan hệ đa phương hóa toàn cầu thời buổi hiện đại. Đánh giá cao chuyến thăm Việt Nam của Tổng thống Mỹ Joe Biden vào dịp hai nước kỷ niệm 10 năm xác lập mối quan hệ.
Good afternoon. Oh, it's usually very quiet in here. You guys are like chatting about. Okay, so good afternoon. As you know, we have two guests today. Neera Tanden is here.
Đánh giá cao chuyến thăm Việt Nam của Tổng thống Biden vào dịp hai nước kỷ niệm 10 năm xác lập quan hệ đối tác toàn diện, ông Tổng Bí thư Nguyễn Phú Trọng nhắc lại kỷ niệm tốt đẹp về cuộc trao đổi chân tình của ông với ông Biden khi làm Tổng Bí thư thăm Mỹ hồi năm 2015, và đánh giá cao những ý kiến trao đổi giữa hai lãnh đạo thời gian qua. Phương châm đặc thù cho sự phát triển của Việt-Mỹ là gác lại quá khứ, vượt qua khác biệt và phát huy tương đồng hướng tới tương lai. Việt Nam đánh giá cao và coi trọng khẳng định của Mỹ là ủng hộ Việt Nam mạnh, độc lập, tự cường và thịnh vượng. Ông Tổng thống Biden đánh giá cao các nội dung thỏa thuận giữa hai nước về tuyên bố chung về việc nâng tầm quan hệ Việt Nam và Mỹ lên đối tác chiến lược toàn diện vì hòa bình, hợp tác và phát triển bền vững. Tổng thống Mỹ Joe Biden coi trọng vai trò, vị trí của Việt Nam ở khu vực, đánh giá cao vai trò tích cực của Việt Nam trong nhiều vấn đề. Trong đó có vấn đề ứng phó với biến đổi khí hậu. Tổng thống Biden ủng hộ vai trò trung tâm của ASEAN và mong muốn hợp tác với Việt Nam để đóng góp vào đoàn kết và thịnh vượng của ASEAN. Lãnh đạo Mỹ, ông Tổng thống Biden ủng hộ sự phát triển của Việt Nam, trong đó có hợp tác kinh tế và khoa học, công nghệ trong giai đoạn mới như phát triển công nghiệp điện tử, ứng phó với biến đổi khí hậu và phát triển năng lượng sạch. Theo Tổng thống Mỹ Joe Biden, việc Việt-Mỹ nâng cấp quan hệ đối diện chiến lược toàn diện có lợi cho cả hai nước và quan hệ chung. Tổng thống Joe Biden đang trong chuyến thăm cấp nhà nước tới Việt Nam. Đây là chuyến thăm đầu tiên Việt Nam dưới cương vị ông là tổng thống từ ngày ông nhậm chức đầu năm 2021. Việt Nam đã có quan hệ đối tác chiến lược toàn diện với 4 quốc gia trên thế giới, gồm Trung Quốc, Nga, Ấn Độ và Hàn Quốc, được thiết lập vào năm 2008, 2012, 2016 và 2022. Như vậy, Hoa Kỳ đây là quốc gia thứ 5, trong đó có quan hệ đối tác chiến lược toàn diện cùng với Trung Quốc, Nga, Ấn Độ và Hàn Quốc. Xin chào cả nhà đã theo dõi chương trình sáng hôm nay và cập nhật chuyến thăm của Tổng thống Biden tại thủ đô Hà Nội của Việt Nam. Xin chào, cảm ơn và hẹn gặp lại.